Welcome everyone. In this lecture we are going to see what are user profiles and what are they used for. So what happens when we open up a terminal or when we log into a machine using maybe SSH or Telnet? Well, if you open up a terminal, like if we have a GUI or GUI interface and we click on terminal and it gets opened up, then that is called as interactive shell. Because we have not given any password or credentials to log into it, we had already done that when we logged into the GUI. On the other hand, if we log in using our username and password on a command line, and then we are put into a terminal having a shell, maybe bash, then that is known as login shell. And while the look of the shell and the feel and the commands or the environment for both of the shells may look the same and feel the same, but the process by which they work is quite different. Like if a user gets logged into a machine on a terminal, then the shell that he is presented with has to go through a certain process. And that process goes through certain configuration files and directories. On top of that, there is a directory which is etc profile, which is used for profiling for system-wide users. It contains like stuff like maybe environments needs to be set for users, what are the path variables, and even aliases, and also some other functions that this etc profile file has got. In that etc profile, it is also defined that we can have user specific profiles in directory which is etc profile.d, and then we can have different directories. Files, I correct myself. Now the benefit of putting files in this profile.d directory is that you see if we have to upgrade or maybe change the system installation or maybe update the packages which affect the profiling, then this file will get replaced by a default file. So all the changes that we had made in here in this file earlier, they will get overwritten. So it's a good choice that we make our own profiles and put them in this directory if we have to. If we have to make our own profile, we put them in profile.d directory, and this does not get affected by system upgrades. Now these two files are system specific. Once the process passes through these two files and sets the or takes into account the essential variables to be set for user profile, the system is then passed on to a specific user directory, which could be home, then whatever is the user, and then there are three files normally that are checked for. The first one is .bash underscore profile. If that file is there, it is read and control is or the variables are set based on this one. But if this is not there, then the second choice, the file that is checked in, is .bash underscore login. Or even if that one is not there, then the third file that is checked is .profile. So in most of the systems, either of these files has to be there. In Debian-based systems or in Ubuntu that I am using, .profile file is there, and that contains the user specific profile settings which would contain the environment, path, and other functions that we are just going to see that what settings does it contain. Now once all the profiling is done, then after that another file gets loaded or executed to set certain functions including aliases, and that file is home and then user and then .bash rc. Now all these settings and the process that I have just mentioned, that is related to login based shells. In parallel to going to this profiling files and etc profile, etc profile D, and these user specific profiles. Other files are also consulted in this process, which are etc, and this is also for global settings. So it's etc bash rc, or it could be etc bash .bash.rc, depending on which distribution we are talking about. In Debian, mostly this is etc bash.rc. And these are the global files for setting user aliases or other user specific stuff that goes into home user bash rc. Now all these commands or all these functions, they get executed like this one. This gets executed sequentially until unless it reaches to home user bash rc. But in parallel to that, this is also, let me change the color, this one also gets executed in case of login shell. But if we are talking about interactive shell, where we do not need to give in the password or the username and the password to get logged into the shell, then login shell process does not get executed. Rather, etc bash rc or etc bash.bash rc, this is only consulted, and after that the process is handed over to home user bash.bash rc to set the specific user based environment variables. Now this .bash rc is not that interactive shell does not take any settings from login shell. No, it's not like that. In fact, interactive shell takes its setting, including path and other such variables, from the login shell based parameters. So we can say that interactive shell settings are somewhat processed quickly as compared to login shell based settings, where a process has to really go through all these steps to give the user a specific profile, and not only give it a specific profile but also give it specific bash shell related settings for that particular login. So let's open up the terminal and see some of these files and folders and some of the settings that are defined in there. Let me just clear this slide. So here I am on my Ubuntu box, and the first file that I wanted to show you is if I can do vi and etc and profile, which I told you that is the first file that is consulted when we try to log into a shell. It says over here that there is a system-wide profile for the Bourne shell and for Bourne compatible shell, and which bash is one of them. We can see in here that this PS1, it is for setting the prompt, and down below we can also see that if it finds any user specific profiles in etc profile.directory .d, then execute them. So that's all there is to it in this file. And if we get out of this file, and let me just type this and look at the contents of this directory which it has referred to, and there is only one script at the moment, which is bash completion.shell. So if I press enter now, and this says that check for interactive bash and that we have not already been sourced. Now what does this source mean? It means that if I bring it down over here, and this dot, this is the special character which is signifying the command source. So you can type in source command over here instead of dot, and it would just work the same way. And what source does is that once we make changes in our bash rc file or in this bash completion file, then to make those changes effective, we need to use the source command so that the changes that we have made into that file, they are taken into effect or made part of that particular session. So let's get out of here and let's see the contents of user specific profile settings if we can find them. So I type in, or let me just type in ls-a so that we can see all the files that are available. The first user specific file I told you about was bash_profile. If that is available, then that will be read. And we see that that file is not available here. The next file was bash_login, and that is also not available. The third file was .profile, and I see that .profile file is available here. So let's see the contents of this .profile file. So here it is, and here it says as well that this file is read for login shells, and it is not read by virtue of the sequence that we had seen earlier, that if .bash profile or .bash login files already exist. And we can see in this file that it is setting path variable if user has got certain bin directories. So as I said, that profile is where we set the path variable, specifically the path variables, and the environment related variables like the prompt that I told you about. Those settings are set using profiling. Now if we get out of this file and have a look at the contents of .bashrc, so I type in .bashrc file, which is over here for user that I'm logged in with. So I do a vi of that, and we see that this says that .bashrc, it is for non-login shells. Well, that's correct, but even if you get logged in using login shell, ultimately this file is called in. So no matter if you use a login shell or non-login shell, .bashrc file is logged in or called in, and it does its work, like maybe how many lines how many history lines can we see. For example, over here the history size is size, and history file can go up to 2 MB. Similarly, if I scroll it down a little bit, and these are the things that you do not need to worry about at the moment. We can see the terminal color that we can set, or if we want to change it, whether we want to force any color change of the prompt. And also in this file, if I bring it further down, we can also see the aliases that would be defined over here, like this one, these aliases, L, or you can define your own aliases. And it is also recommended that we do not define aliases over here. Rather, we create a different file by the name of .bash aliases, which it says over here, and we define our own aliases in there instead of changing this file. But what it does is that if we execute this LA command, then this is not really a command, this is just an alias which will execute the command ls-a. So if you have got certain environment in which you have to use certain long commands time and again, then you can create their shortcuts by typing in couple of letters, and in front of that you put in the complete long command, so that you do not need to type in that command time and again, and you just use small shortcut of that command to get the long command executed. Now let's also have a look at etc based files in global settings, which was etc and .bash. So .bash.bashrc, because this is Debian distribution. Sometimes you would find just .bashrc file in there, but over here we have bash.bashrc. It is really difficult to pronounce sometimes. So I just press enter now, and we see that it says that this is .bashrc file for interactive bash cells or bash shells. And again, if you look at here, it is saying that we need to source in etc/profile, which I told you about, that sourcing, how we can do that. We either put in dot, or we can use the source command to do the sourcing. So these are the settings that are placed in this file, which are global for all the users on the Linux system. And really, again, this might seem some arduous task to you to remember all what it is doing, But from certification point of view, you do not need to specifically remember what each file is doing. You just need to, or what settings are placed in each file. You just need to remember that the sequence of steps that are performed when you get logged in using a login shell or an interactive shell, then what files are specifically used for what purposes. But as you keep on using these files, you will get accustomed to this cryptic language that are placed in here. Another thing that I can show you is the files which are placed in etc, and let me do an ls over here. So ls, etc, and scal, and I need to do all files including the hidden ones. So these are the files .bashrc, example.desktop, .profile, .bash logout. These are the files that when a user gets created using the user add command, if I create a user or an administrator creates a user, these files are copied on into that user specific folder. So the files that are over here like .bashrc, example.desktop, profile, and this bash logout, these are the files that are just copied from here. So this is like you can say this is scal, I believe it's the short form for skeleton. It's like these are the skeletons or the bare bones where you can take the kind of template and put them in specific users directory so that users can have the settings that need to be placed for that specific working of that user, like setting the path or the environment variables or aliases. You see, if we open up bash.rc file for any of the users that we create, we'll have the same set of default aliases in there. So it's like general templates that gets copied from skeleton file to user specific folders. So just remember that when a user gets logged in, the login process has to go through the profiling, and then from profiling, in parallel to that, it goes through the bash rc settings in etc folder, and then the control is passed on to user specific folder, whether those are the profile files or the bash rc files. But in case of non-login shells like interactive shells, then the control is passed directly to the bash rc if it is using the bash shell. So that's all there is to it as far as user profiling and system profiling is concerned. I hope you have learned from this video, and I would like to thank you for viewing.